All right, good morning. It's nice to see you all again.
Hi.
How is everybody?
Okay.
Tired? Anyone tired?
Yeah.
It's been a long week, right? Like, I'm trying to watch TikTok and she always does. And it was like, I can't believe it's only Tuesday with like lots of other words put in there, obviously. Like yesterday felt like it was the end of the week already. And today's Wednesday. We're almost there. We're halfway through the week. Doesn't help that it's so hot, right? It's awful. Did you see though? I think it's Sunday and Monday. There's like a 70% chance of rain. 70. When it's over 40, I get excited. Under 40, it's not happening. Right? There's a chance it'll mist. Anyway, I'm glad you're all back. I'm glad you're here. We get to start chapter 1 today, which is very exciting. First slides of the semester. I do have a couple of things I want to do before then. And I do this in every class. I think it's a great way to just kind of review what we talked about last time. But let me see first, are there any questions, anything we covered last time you have questions about, or anything that came up between now and when I saw you last about the syllabus, anything from last time? I don't know. How many of you were able to order a copy of the book or get a copy of the book, one or the other? Bunch of you are on the way, maybe. That's great. So we're going to start chapter 1 today. So hopefully you can have that soon, or I see some of you already do have it. What I want to do before we jump into the chapter is I want to do a quick review of last time. And so I told you we were going to use Kahoot today, and we're going to start with it right now. So if you downloaded the Kahoot app, that's fantastic. If you didn't, that is okay. You can use just access it online, or use the app if you downloaded it. If you don't have a computer, you don't have a phone, or want to team up with somebody next to you, that's totally fine. You can do that. And I'll put up the code here so that you can get logged in. 1 second. Oh, we need the music too, because that's the best part of Kahoot. Okay, so I'm going to write the code up on the board. And again, feel free to partner up with somebody next to you if you don't have access to this or you can't get logged in for some reason. The internet in this building is shameful. So if you're struggling, probably aren't alone. But the access code is 149426.
Okay. So I guess we can team up. Yeah. It's like if the Wi-Fi is not going up, I don't know.
The Wi-Fi is fine.
Yeah, it's all at the first. I'm double it.
Okay.
I love the little faces. They make me happy.
It's finally generated.
Oh, you don't get to pick?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought you got to pick. I let my children do this last night so that they could try it out and pick, and they all said it was boring. I'm like, I'm sorry, we're not doing more fun things.
I'll agree that.
I'm taking
Perfect.
class. Yeah, but it's fun though. Like even though it's still the end goal is to be.
So I'll give you another minute or so. Look, 26 of you are logged in, which is great. I'll give you just another
But
minute.
it's something I you know this. I suspected something was in this. Yeah.
So I want to apologize. I'm going to talk to IT. I'm going to talk to IT about this, but the screen, the projector's a little big. So some of the stuff kind of gets like a little off the screen. So I'm sorry. I'll try and read the stuff that's over here. I'm hoping they can shrink it down a little bit. It was the same last semester and I asked them to fix it. So I'm going to hold my breath on that one. But we'll see. So what's going to happen is there are, I believe, 11 questions. And everybody ready? So they're about things from the syllabus or things that I covered last class. Some of them more important than others. You can use the syllabus as a resource if you would like, or you can just go from memory. But you are awarded points. You guys ready? All right. You're awarded points based on speed and accuracy. So you want to be fast, but you want to be right. Right. And we'll have a winner at the end of each question, and then we'll have 3 winners at the end. And I have candy. If you win any round, I have candy, and I added more new candy. So I put it in a bag so I won't be offended, right? But I have candy for those of you who win. We'll be actually doing one other Kahoot later today. And then we won't use it for a long time. So we're just really Kahooting it up today. I don't know. So again, these are about the syllabus and about last class. Just a quick review. If you get logged out at any point, the code's right here, okay, just in case you get booted. But here we go. We're going to start really simple, but it's important. So here we go. Question 1, you have 4 options. What is the name of this class? Okay, right? Abnormal Psych, Intro to Sociology, and then you can read the other 2. So you pick the color. Oh, that was fast. Nice job. Good. I'm going to assume the 1 was an error, because that happens and it's cut off, right? Abnormal Psych. Excellent. Always know where you are, right? Seems silly, but it's important to know what class you're in and who's teaching it and all that kind of stuff. So always know that. That's fantastic. Great start. You. It broke. There it goes. See the Wi-Fi. Awful, right? If you're just coming in, feel free to join us. Here's the code to get logged in. So email, and again, I'm sorry, it's cut off. Really obnoxious. It's going to drive me nuts until I get it fixed. But email, right? If you ever have a question, email me. You can call me. You can come to my office hours, but email is always going to be the fastest way. Okay, so still in the lead. 2 for 2. Okay. Number 3. I have how many kids in total? 4, 7. 4 and 7 on the left, sorry. I didn't put 3, so I gave you that little right? Totally not important to the class, but yeah. I have 8. I also have 8 children. No, yes, I do have 8 children. 3, but 8 in total, right? Okay, so who's in a... Ooh, new leader. Where's Katie? Nice job, Katie. Way to take her down. All right, next. Number 4. What is the name of our required textbook? Exploring Psychology in Modules, Guide to Abnormal Psych. Yeah. What was that? Oh, it's okay. Thank you. Right. Fundamentals of Abnormal Psych. If I ever wrote a book in this class, I'd so name it Abnormality in You. But fundamentals of Abnormal Psych, again, try and get that as soon as you can, whether it's the current one or the older one or online or whatever format you want to do. Jaden, where's Jaden? Nice. New ruler, new winner. You're the ruler of all right now. Okay, next. True or false? You should come to class even if you aren't feeling well. Bizarrely. True. One of you is like, yes. Right. Please don't come if you're sick. I already had a couple of people today who weren't feeling well for whatever reason. If that happens, it's okay. Remember that the lectures are online. If there's something that's due, you can email it to me. So try and be here. But if you're not feeling well, stay home, take care of yourself. Okay. Right. Jaden again. Nice job. Okay. 2 candies for you. Next, our exams will be taken in person on Canvas. Perfect, on Canvas, right? So our 3 exams that we take in here will not be in person, they'll be on Canvas, which means that you can use your notes, your book. You really all should do wonderfully on them if you've prepared. Let's see. Still in the lead. The competitive part of me is like, take Jaden down. Right? And the other part of me is like, is happy. Okay. Next, if you miss an exam, which of the following is true about making it up? You can make it up anytime. You can make it up before the tests are graded. Sorry that it cuts it off. It's obnoxious. I tried to move this over in my last class, but I didn't.
Maybe minimize your screen.
I tried that, yeah. Thank you, though. Yeah. Okay, a little more split up. And we didn't talk about this a ton. So the exams, because you have the entire day to take it, there's really no reason you shouldn't be able to, right? Because you have this class time open and you have the whole day. But if you, for some reason, have something going on that day and you email me during that day or the day before or whatever and make other arrangements, we can work something out. Just don't email me after the deadline and say you missed it or it'll be too late, okay? Let's see. Jaden again. Okay, next one, number 8. Attendance and participation are graded by responding to questions in class, 10 random 10-point activities. All right, most of you got it. 10 random 10-point activities. The index card is the first one, right? So it's the first 10 points of the semester. We will likely have, I always try and do 11. So one of them gets dropped if you miss one for some reason, but try and be here as much as you can. I will never give you a pop quiz ever, right? So mean, I'm not that mean, but be here, respond to questions, but it's those activities that are worth the points. Okay. Look at your margin is narrowing, but you're still in the lead. Okay. Number 9, if you miss a participation homework assignment, it can be submitted whenever for full points by email before the end of the class session. Thank you. All right, most of you got it. Perfect. So if you're going to miss a class and there was homework to, email it to me before the end of the class. You can still get that credit. That's perfect. And we're going to, in a little bit, I'm going to have you exchange information with people around you. So you have people to reach out to if you do miss a class. You can always reach out to me, of course, but your classmates are a great resource. Okay. All right. See, he's had me before, so he knows the questions. No, I'm giving you credit. Okay, ready? Here we go. Next one. Number 10. In this class, you will write how many papers divided into how many parts? 1 into 2 parts, 1 into 3 parts, and so on. We're a little more split. So 1 into 3 parts. Remember, you're going to write 1 paper in here. But start thinking about that character already, a movie or TV show character. And it'll be 3 parts. So we'll kind of build up to it. Right. Ooh, Katie. Where's Katie? Right. Which Katie is it? Oh, we're going to look at the logo. All right. Nice. We're both right neck and neck. Last one. This is the most important question by far. Who's my favorite football player? Peyton Manning, Cooper Kupp. Has like a trick question in here. Make sure that you. Okay, so not important at all. And 2 of you said a baseball player. That's okay. Brady, right? I mean, I don't even know anymore. Does it count if he's not playing? I don't know what to do with myself in the football world, but let's see where we're at the end here. Here's our podium. 3rd place. Katie. I don't know how that works, but okay. 3rd place. Katie. And it's suspense. Katie and Katie, right? Nice job. So if you want it, they're so happy. If you want any of the rounds or one of these 3, make sure you get candy from me at the end. But just a quick review, right? Things that are kind of highlights from last time. They look so happy. I hate to like put them away, right? Let's see. Close this. Let me close the wrong one. But that's okay. All right. So again, those are just things from last time that I want to make sure that you know. Any other questions? Anything else you're still like confused about? Need any other information on? Anything good? I have 2 more things before we start, Dr. Lund. As I said, I would really recommend, I mentioned this last time, I would really recommend that you take notes as we go through the lecture. So I'm going to lecture every day, or most days, I should say. And I will use the PowerPoint, which again are available on Canvas. What I've had a lot of people do, now if you're using technology, it might be a little different, but if you're taking notes like by hand, a lot of my students I've seen do this, like print out what it is a 3-slide format with some space next to it to take notes. Okay, and the nice part about this is you can circle and write things on the slide part, and then you could write your notes on your credit card here. So I'll pass this around just for reference. But in general, it's a good idea to take notes. Now, you don't need to write down what's in the slides because you have access to the slides, right? They're online. So what you want to write down is anything else. If I write something on the board, you're going to want to write that down. If I say this is going to be on the exam, like circle it or start or whatever you need to do to remember that. If you have questions or there's examples that are helpful, that's the stuff that you want to write down, right? You don't need to worry about the slides. That's going to be a lot if you're trying to write that down, which is why they're available to you. So I would definitely recommend that. The more ways that you can encode information into your brain, the more likely you are to remember. Right? So if you're listening to my voice, looking at the slide, and writing it or typing it, that's 3 different methods of encoding. It's going to help you with the that information better. Okay, so you probably know what works for you, but I would definitely recommend that you take notes. I think it's a good practice to have. And I mentioned this earlier, what I'd like to do, and it's funny, and this is the case in like every class, such creatures of habit. Like I remember you sat there last time, like in the front row, I remember at least, and a few in the back. We always tend to sit in the same spot. But it's just how we tend to do this. People were creatures of habit. What I'd love for you to do is find a few people around you and exchange information with them. It could be an email, it could be a phone number, it could be something on social media if that's more comfortable. If you miss a class, your classmates are always your best resource. Okay, so they could help you with notes. If you miss, they could give you notes. They could let you know if there was a homework assignment. And sometimes people will even get together and compare notes. That's a great practice too. You can always email me, but your classmates are also a great resource. So find a few people around you, exchange whatever level of information you're comfortable doing, and you can always add later. This way, at least you have a few. So go ahead, I'll give you a few minutes and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So
Thank you.
My email on. Okay, the best thing you do is, text these. So or give. It's funny because I mean, that's not really a bad thing. Because I know that these things so upside down. Oh, so what I usually do, I usually look at all the information in the class. Listen and record.
Yeah, it's just for reference. You might not even need it.
So you, how do you?
Okay.
So we. Usually write down your phone. Okay, so like anything that's like, okay, like anything you're full, I suggest like writing it down and then probably just bring it on it and then. Probably gonna be on the exam. So the fact that if it's in a slide.
Or did everybody get a couple of people? Again, you can always add later, like if you notice there's somebody who you're sitting by, you didn't get their information, you can add, but now you have some places to start, which I think is really important. One last thing, I wrote the campus security phone number up here. If there's ever an emergency on campus, now I hope we never have to deal with that, but it is a reality in our world, right? Like that it could, in theory, something could happen. You're encouraged to call 911. But there's also a campus security number. If you don't feel comfortable calling 911, you can call them and they will route it. If you ever see something suspicious or something is going on, that number or 911 are your go-tos. if something ever happens to me, like if I'm up here and I just drop over dead in there, hopefully not dead, right? But like I fall over or I trip and hit my head, I don't know. Somebody call the security or 911 or whatever. Again, I hope you never need it. You can add that to your phone numbers while we're doing phone numbers and emails. Okay. I think that is officially every side note that I had. Are there any other questions? Anything else before we jump in? Yeah.
Will these sessions look in?
They're pretty close, right? So I'm following the book, but I don't cover everything and I do add some stuff too. So it should correlate pretty well. But you'll see some like omissions and some additions as well.
The assignments also go ahead and they
They're usually more lecture based than the book, but everything. So my lectures are fueled by the book or like inspired from the book, and then I often add a little bit as well. Yeah, of course. Anything else for now? First slide of the semester. I know I'm excited. I love this class. I love this this topic too. I think it's kind of a fun way to start. In chapter 1, we're going to look at how do we define abnormality. Right, and we're gonna spend a lot of time on that today because it's kind of a big topic for this class. How do we decide what's normal versus abnormal? We'll talk a little bit about treatment. How is abnormality viewed in the past? Really shameful history of treating mental illness in the field of psychology, some current trends and jobs and so on. So kind of setting the stage. We'll set the stage for a few weeks. So we'll talk about this, then we'll look at the models of abnormality. How do we conduct assessment? And then the rest of the semester are the disorders, ending with forensic psychology. Okay, so that's kind of our plan for the year semester. So starting here, abnormal psychology. That's the title of this class, right? You're in abnormal psych. Abnormal psychology, if we look at a definition, is the scientific study of abnormal behavior in an effort to predict, describe, explain, and change those patterns of functioning. Okay, so we're going to look at how do we define normal and abnormal? What are mental illnesses and what are all the different ones and the criteria for them? And how do we treat them and what causes them? There's a lot of research involved in this field. There's obviously a lot of professions that correlate with this field as well. But this is kind of the scope of what we're going to cover, all the different things that are abnormal. And we're going to start with that term today, because what's normal to me might not be normal to you. What's normal today might not be normal 5 years from now or 5 years ago, right? It's constantly kind of evolving. So we sometimes use like a metric to decide what's normal and abnormal. And we call those the D's of abnormality. But before I talk about them, I think sometimes it's easier to see what we think of as abnormal by watching someone pretend to have a mental illness. Right. And we have a lot of stereotypes of what mental illness looks like. It can obviously be an incredible range of things, and it's not always obvious like we tend to think. But I have a clip of somebody pretending to be mentally ill. And then we can talk about like what are some of the markers that we might look for in real life. So obviously, but what are some of the things that he does to portray that he's mentally ill? Portray that he's mentally ill. What are some of the things that he does in that clip? Yeah.
Being unaware of surroundings.
Yeah, completely oblivious to his surroundings, right? What else does he do that's like odd, right? To portray that he's mentally ill. What else? Yeah. Yeah, he definitely has a lot of outbursts. Yeah.
I would say a lot of yelling.
Yelling, right? Kind of inappropriate volume and outbursts. Yeah.
He didn't care about personal space.
He didn't at all. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, he's impulsive. What else? There's a couple other things.
His speech.
Yeah, his speech is off, right? For sure, in a lot of ways. Anything else? What else does he do? There's a few more. What about the way he's dressed? Right? Is that average, like a typical outfit? Not so much, right? His hair, I don't know, that might just be his hair, but his appearance, the things that he does and says. He's obsessed with football, which I mean, I appreciate, but it's inappropriate to the situation, right? All those things he's trying to portray having a mental illness. Now it's characterized, but like I do think that it is a good way to start thinking about the ideas that we have around mental illness, okay, and what it might look like. Now, and it doesn't always look that obvious, obviously, but we sometimes talk about something called the D's of abnormality. Now, the textbook talks about 4. I added a 5th one. So the 5 D's of abnormality. And as a side note, I love questions like this on exams. like what are the 5 Ds of abnormality would be a beautiful short answer question, like lists of 4 or 5 or 3. So you might circle it. This would be a great question to ask you. And again, you'll have a study guide, but just to give you that kind of heads up. So these aren't necessarily like criteria. These aren't diagnostic criteria that you would find in a book, but they're kind of guidelines, right, for things that we would look for. So the first D is deviance. Now, if somebody is deviant, they differ markedly from kind of what everybody else is doing. Maybe they stand out in some way. I would say he definitely stood out in that video clip, right? So we have tons of what we would call norms. There are norms, rules that are either stated or unstated for everything. Very simple example. Every single, I just double checked, but I knew the answer already. Every single one of you has clothing on, right? You knew that you couldn't come to school today without clothes. You wouldn't make it very far in the day, right? Easier than that. Every single one of you is seated and facing forward, right? It's a norm. When you're in the classroom, you sit, you're quiet, you face forward, you know what you're supposed to do, right? There are kind of rules for it. If one of you stood up and stood in the back corner and stared at the wall, everyone in this room would be so distracted, myself included, that it would be hard to continue because it would be deviant. It would be different than the culture that we have in this room, right? So every like place or group has a culture. You have a culture within your family of things that are normal or typical. We have a culture at this school. There's a culture in our country. The time, the year is a culture. And so what's normal might change from culture to culture, right? And group to group and time to time. But when people act very different from what everyone else is doing, we tend to wonder if there's something going on. It's a flag, right? Now I have these pictures over here. Your book talks about, I think, the Michigan icebreakers or ice jumpers. It's a group of people who have a normal culture of jumping into the ice for fun every year, right? To me, I would never do that. I would freeze and that'd be the end of me, right? No thanks, I'll drink hot chocolate and watch, right? But this is normal to this group, right? So again, this can change from group to group and time to time, but when people are deviant or different from what's normal or expected, it's a red flag. So that's D number 1. D number 2 is distress. Disorders cause distress. It's a criteria for every single mental illness that we'll talk about. It causes clinically significant distress or impairment. Okay, so every disorder causes somebody either discomfort or distress. It makes them uncomfortable, it makes life hard, right? Or at least at times. So distress is a very key element of every disorder because every single one of us has a little bit of every disorder we're going to talk about, right? But only when it starts to affect your life and cause you discomfort does it cross that threshold. Dysfunction is another deal. It's the third one, dysfunction. It interferes with your daily life. You have so much anxiety that you can't come to class, right? Because there's too much anxiety. You're so depressed that you can't get up in the morning, and so you're late to your job, right? It interferes with your life in some way, right? And disorders tend to do that. They cause dysfunction. The fourth D is danger, right? Oftentimes disorders have an element of danger to them. Not always, but it's common that people might be a risk to harming others or harming themselves. Very common when people are depressed that they consider things like suicide or self-harming behaviors. There are disorders where people are violent toward others, right? So danger tends to be an element. And then my 5th D, this is the Setmire 5th D, if you will, like the book only talks about 4, is duration. Disorders last longer than is typical. Now, typical is very subjective, but if somebody, let's say you lose someone important in your life, maybe it's a breakup or a death or someone moves even, right? There's a period of time where like your adjustment to that is considered like normal and typical. And then there's often a period of time where it's gone beyond. Right? So duration is a big piece. Every disorder has a defining element of duration. To be considered depressed, you have to have an episode for 2 weeks. Manic, 5 days, right? Like everything has a criteria for how long. Now, even within all of this, it's super subjective, right? Like again, what's typical to me might not be typical to you, right? What causes discomfort to me might not for you. But they're kind of just general guidelines. Now, I have a clip I want to play for you, and I just want you to think as you're watching the clip. Do you think this individual has a disorder or not, right? And it's completely subjective. I don't have the right answer. But if you've ever seen either of these two folks here, this lizard man and Stalking Cat. Those are their names, not mine. That's what they call themselves. So I'm going to play you a clip of Stalking Cat, kind of talking about his identity. And I want you to think as you're watching it, does he have a disorder or not? Okay, so let me hit this. I'm going to get good with the lights today. Here we go. You saw Stalking Cat walk by you. It would be totally normal to do a double take, right? Like that's out of the like usual thing that you might see. But is it enough that we think this individual has a disorder? What I want you to do, right, and we're going to look at a couple of different cases of this. I want you to find a few people around you. So like 2, 3, 4 people, whatever's easy. And I want you to just talk about Stalking Cat for a minute. Do you think he has a disorder or not? You don't have to agree. And I'm going to put up the next Kahoot because we're going to vote. Right, so you don't have to agree with your group. So while you're talking about it, make sure you join that as well. We're going to be voting on each person we'll talk about today. So find a few people, again, whatever's easy. Do you think he has a disorder? And then join the Kahoot. So make sure you try it.
Join my session. Let's go on stuff.
So we're going to vote on him. You're going to have 2 choices, and it's not timed, and there's no competition this time, right? It's just voting so we can see. So it's going to be has a disorder, doesn't have a disorder. You have to pick one. I'm a Gemini. I hate forced decisions, right? But you have to pick one. Lean one way or the other, and then we'll talk about it. Don't close the Kahoot, though, because we're going to come back to it in a little bit. So you can just kind of leave it open after. Everybody set? If you're not, I put the code up here. Football helmets, bonus points. Everybody ready? Okay, so let's vote. Again, has a disorder, doesn't have a disorder. Okay, and if you're still trying to join, you can come in here. Oh, wait, one more second. I said a couple names popping up. It's such a colorful, happy screen. I love it. Okay, here we go. So just Stalking Cat has a disorder, doesn't have a disorder. Oh, here. Use it. So has a disorder, doesn't. Oh, we are very split. I like that though. That's perfect. I don't have the right answer to this question, right? It's so subjective. But we have 18 people who say that he has a disorder, and 15 people who say no. So why? What were your thoughts? Why yes, why no? Again, there's no right or wrong. Yeah.
You mentioned it's cultural reasons.
Okay.
Like it's just cultural.
Okay, so you were on the no side. Right. Okay, for cultural reasons. I like that. Yeah. Okay. A little weird, but something he likes. Yeah.
I was also on the no side because at the beginning he mentioned it was cultural reasons, and he also said that it makes his life easier,
Sure.
which was one of the things like that has to interfere with your life, and it doesn't. Although I think he does take it to an extreme level where it could cause him problems, but
Okay. Well,
I was gonna say like, yeah, I mean, this could cause him harm, so, and it just seems a bit weird. Like, so I think he probably does have something going on, but I wouldn't say it's. I mean, he's obviously not, harming anybody else, so it's like,
so you can turn it.
well, yes. But I'm like kind of I'm honestly kind of in the middle of
Sure.
working toward yes.
Okay, yeah, what would you think?
I was saying, because like, again, going back to the 5 Gs you said, really mark all of them, and again, like, you can be like, well, it's very extreme, it's weird. You're like, well, again, it's a political thing, and it's uncomfortable.
Okay.
Makes him happy.
Right, it might make other people uncomfortable, but not him, right? Yeah, right, I like that, right? Like, bummer, deal with it, yeah.
Again, no communicating.
Okay,
Was intention for a word and how it made him feel. I mean, he was open about it. I mean, if he wasn't like, and he wasn't particularly like, and he just sounded normal when he was talking about it.
okay,
At least for societal norms.
all right. Anybody else? Yeah,
I said yes.
Okay.
Due to the fact that I would read stuff on the traffic class.
okay,
I would decide that could be extremely painful
yeah.
and that could be a danger to himself.
The dentist part is my limit. I couldn't do that. Like, go get that. I don't go to the dentist for a cleaning without like serious like bribery or like really like trying to get there. Like, you go and get all your teeth filed down. Oh, thank you. Right? Yeah.
I said yes, because I feel like even though he did do it for cultural reasons, he is leaning a bit more toward like the obsession of
Okay.
the culture.
Yeah.
And also it's like doing new body modifications, getting new sorts of implants, filing your teeth down. It can be dangerous for
Sure.
yourself,
Okay.
especially if there's like an infection or something, or if like it's not FDA approved or something like that.
Okay. Good points. Yeah.
I said no because he's not putting himself in danger on purpose. Like, he's doing it like there might be a side effect, but he's not seeking out that danger.
Okay.
And he's doing it in order to make himself feel better. So like, I thought maybe potentially this could be a way to heal a disorder necessarily. Like maybe there is like some kind of discrepancy with how he sees himself, and this is him healing that.
Okay.
But this in itself is not a disorder.
Great. And there's a lot of interesting parallels we could make here, right? We could relate like the tattooing. Tattoos aren't that uncommon. So where does it cross the line from normal to abnormal level of tattooing? Piercings aren't uncommon. Same. A lot of people talk about connections to like gender dysphoria, right? So transitioning from one sex to another to be the way that you feel like you should be, right? Let me play devil's advocate though for 1 second. Would it change your answer at all if I told you that he committed suicide? Right, so we don't know why, but he took his own life, right, years ago at this point. So to me, knowing that piece of information changes it a little bit for me. Does it change it for anyone? Like, it doesn't have to, but does that kind of tip you in one way or the other? But it could be that there was something underlying it. It could be the rejection that he met from the world, from the way he presented. We won't know. We'll never know, right? But the interesting part is I think we tend to think disorders are like obvious like that. And they're not always, not always. Was that a hint?
Because it's like, for instance, it's depression.
Mhm.
Perfect research, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like, okay, but what was the leading factor of it? Was it always there, right? Starting slowly after all the stuff. So it's like, clinical depression, where it's always there, but it's, yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
But. it's just like a- and then what- was it really sweet?
Yeah.
Right?
And we don't know, is the hard part.
Maybe when that video was taken, he was chilling.
Yeah.
And maybe when it was active, he was not.
Right.
That's hard to say.
I have 4 more scenarios. Yeah, they're not videos, they're on a piece of paper. You're not turning this in, but in your same group, I'm gonna give you each one. You don't need to write on each one, I'm just gonna give you each one so that you have it. And what I want you to do in your group is talk about one of these people. Do you think they have a disorder, or not, and again, you have to pick, right? So leaning one way or the other. You can read them out loud, or you can just read them yourself and talk about it, but then we'll vote and talk about each one, right? So leave that up, like in the background, or you can log out and log back in. But just take a few minutes, you don't have to write anything down, you're not turning it in, just kind of talk about these four. Do you think they have a disorder or not? Honestly, there's only one to me that has a clear answer. The other three are. Did everyone get one? Everyone good? Have an extra.
Yeah.
Disorder, if you can put the stick between log and the colorful and entertaining person.
Things that no, it was back to you.
And led for human life.
See what was the together with portable life.
I know, I did that much.
That is.
You gotta get together.
And again, you don't have to agree, but kind of talk about it and decide.
No, I didn't think it's there. There's more.
So you should.
Get to know his feelings of feeling down. At first you do this, but after you do this, you really have lost feeling to do this. So you get about a week before. And then in a few days after. That's the first one.
Yeah, that was always like, oh, essentially, you're not very good. This feeling is to have that, it's not deciding that. And regression. And then also, once from a young age, there's some trauma there.
I don't know. Does my queen do?
I found.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And like, and then on top of that. These don't be for the lifestyle. Yeah, right. This is that's it. So this seems to me.
Yeah.
I struggle with the second one because I know it seems a little like that was the. There are. Yeah, right. It's like I know that's where it is. I think it's one of those. Yeah. And then you're.
No, I'm looking at like.
Feels like.
Look it up.
It's always. Yeah.
No, again.
Eric was born in Australia.
Seems like it's just like.
All right, is everyone still logged into the code? If you're not, we're gonna vote on each one of these. Again, in my opinion, there's only one of these. That's a little more clear cut than the other two. We'll see what you think. We'll see what you think. So, we're gonna vote. All right, everyone ready? Got your technology to vote? So we're gonna vote on Andrew first. Okay, so again, has a disorder? Doesn't have a disorder. I can guess the result of this one, but we'll see. Let's see. Andrew. Has a disorder, doesn't have a Yep. So if you're wondering which of the four was the number one that you can see, so all of you who voted said Andrew has a disorder. Why? What was your like, this is definitely a disorder? Yeah.
Because the whole thing talks about how he's like super aggressive, stabbing people and robbing houses, and then he could just flip his switch into being an entertaining person with a certain charm.
Okay. What does that sound like? Anyone have a thought as to what that sounds like? Yeah. Okay, so maybe some bipolar tendencies, other thought? Okay, so psychopathic or sociopathic, right? Like an antisocial personality disorder. Yeah. It could be, right? We have so little information, like we want more. Anyone else have, so those are great points. There's one more red flag in there that really tips me. Anybody else? Yeah.
So I didn't feel any guilt.
Yeah, it's the no guilt, right? Because you can be violent and not have a mental illness, but it's the violence and all the behaviors, but he doesn't feel bad about it, right? And we'll talk about antisocial personality disorder, but if I had to diagnose Andrew, that's where I would go, right? Has some red flags. So Andrew is like the one, I gave you a good one to start with. That's like, okay, yes. And now it gets blurry. Barbara's my favorite to talk about. Let's vote on Barbara. I used to make people raise their hands. This is much nicer, right? Okay, so let's vote on Barbara. Has a disorder, doesn't exist. Okay, so not 100% here. So we have most of you saying no. So 27 said no, 5 said yes. So what do you think on either side? Why yes, why no? What's going on with Barbara? Yeah. Okay, which is pretty typical, right? Most of us don't like having to be homework, and stress can be very difficult. Other thoughts? What else is going on here? Yeah.
Well, when we were talking about it, it sounds kind of like PMS,
Yeah.
and like it is very common to get like that. I think it reached a point where like it was more extreme feelings, like suicidalness and stuff. It could be a disorder, but like this just sounds kind of normal.
Okay, and PMS, right, premenstrual syndrome, is very common. A lot of women go through some level of PMS. My dad, when we were kids, my dad was like, your mom is gonna be someone else, like when we got a month. But I'm like, what do you mean by that? Like, telling me like a monster. Someone else, he's like, there's gonna be a weekend, I'm like, don't look at it. And like, and we're talking about this, right? Like, but for years, my brother, they're all scared of our mom. But a lot of women go through this stuff. But is it like PMS or is there something else? Like what are other thoughts? Anyone else have a? 5 of you said yes. Anyone on the yes side? More than just maybe PMS? What do you think? Yeah.
Yes, just because it's been more than a year.
Okay.
So she probably developed depression and she was trying to get binge eating disorder.
Okay.
She just kept constantly eating, specifically sweets,
Mhm.
but she kept eating and that's what she noticed too.
Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah.
I said she probably doesn't, because I feel like the symptoms, like while they could seem like maybe like depression or something like that, they're very specifically like she lacked energy to do anything, which could have a biological cause, like
Sure.
she's bleeding and getting ready to have her period, like you can lose a lot of energy when you're on your period because you're losing a lot of nutrients. And like the same thing with like the obsessed, like eating and craving a lot of sweets. A lot of people get cravings when they're on their period, lots of times for sweets, and chocolate itself too is like something that can help replenish like magnesium and iron, stuff like that. So she could have just more of like a PMS kind of solution.
Yeah, and it could be hormonal. It could be something purely physical. There is something called PMDD. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. So premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So for some women, PMS symptoms can be so intense that it causes a different level of like struggle and suffering where there's suicidality, and it's more than just cravings and discomfort or like a little bit of a mood swing, which is normal. She could maybe be teetering on that, or it could just be kind of normal PMS, right? I don't have the answer, right? I think I want more, we maybe need more information, but even then, we're not 100% in agreement. Similar with the next person, but a little different. Let's vote on Diane. Let's see where you're at with Diane. Has a disorder, doesn't have a disorder. Okay. 10 say yes. 21 say no. We're getting like, they're starting to shift a little bit as we go down the page here, right? So thoughts on Diane, I forgot her name. Thoughts on Diane? What do we think about her? So very split. What do we think? Yeah.
I think she's just going through a bit.
Okay. That's fair, right? Like she's had some pretty awful stuff happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only been 3 months.
Yeah.
Like,
Sure, 3 months, right? And all these things happening, that could be kind of within the realm of normal. I think something important to ask yourself, like, what would you expect somebody? How would you expect somebody to respond to stuff like this, right? And if it seems like it's an expectable, like typical reaction, then it's probably not a disorder, but 10 of you said yes. So what are some thoughts on that side? Anyone willing on that side? Yeah.
It's kind of like getting doctors, but like it's not something to do with.
Sure, right, and you would hope as time goes on, it gets a little bit better. Maybe it hasn't been enough time, but maybe she's then going down that path, right? Yeah.
I said no, but I feel like since we don't have that much time, I was even after and happen and really tell her diagnosis or something. So maybe in the future she will like she'll like have something with her right now since it's only been months and then can't really certain on something. So that's nice.
Great, right, and somebody might have like signs that they're on the way to a disorder, but not yet, right? Go there and then yeah.
So I said yes, just because it seems like, you know, how I said, it seems like she's turning into having a disorder. It seems like she may not be quite there yet, but it seems like she's definitely, you know, suffering with some depression, which can lead to this. So it's definitely, you know, seems like something's going on rather than just depression.
Okay, yeah, great. Hey, you already went up too.
I think it's interesting that I think obviously she's going through a grief period that's pretty standard if you're losing somebody, especially in that kind of way.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that she cries at night away from her children, shielding them, and then got a new job, moved out to a new apartment. So it seems like she's adjusting and the depression isn't quite creeping into her responsibilities or everyday life yet. Seems it's something she's dealing with in private and internally.
Yeah. No,
processing, sorry.
No, that's great.
Internally processing, but it's not exactly interfering with like her children's lives or her job yet. So
She's
I
reacting
think
but
it's
managing, right,
Right.
kind of. Okay, I like that. And then there was one more, Hannah, was you had your hand up?
Probation and stuff sounds a little impulsive,
Mhm,
like she had impulsive decisions before she moved on.
sure.
So when she did it, everything was nice and how that quickly fell through. I feel like that caused her depression. Wow. Then like hiding it from her kids, like I feel like that makes it even worse. And
Okay.
because they're probably like, she's so sad with 95
Mhm.
and that just. like,
And I love this about this scenario. Polar opposite perspectives, right? And that's the point in a way, is that this is so subjective, right? Like this person, this fictional person, these people are made up, could be on the road to serious depression and months from now have a major like depression disorder, or could be on the road to like managing it and being okay. And we don't know, right? It's not as clear cut as we maybe would like it to be. Eric is similar, the last one. Right, but let's see what you thought about Eric, because it's kind of got the similar thread of like, what would you expect? But we'll see. Okay, so here's Eric, last one. Let's vote on him. Okay, so we flopped now, right? A lot of you, 26 of you said Eric has a disorder, and only 6 said no. Now they have a similar circumstance, like bad things happen and they're struggling with it. So why did so many of you go over to the red? Like, what are some reasons? Yeah.
Because after everything that's happened to him, he states that he's suicidal.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the flag for you that kind of put you on to the disorder.
Yeah, he like gave up after he has like this great life, then he gets into an accident.
Mhm.
And it didn't more, so he wants to end it all.
Sure. Okay. Other thoughts? Yeah.
I said most just because, even though he did has like the great life that he lived and he did seem to be going into a depression. The pain from a year after the accident definitely seems like something that can either be physical or it could be psychological, because I do know that some people can suffer from like fainting limb.
Sure.
And like, they can have pain for the rest of their lives if they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that's what I.
Great. Great. Any other thoughts about him? Yeah. Okay.
The reason I said, no, is simply because, like, he had no control over that accident that he has.
Okay.
So, like, if that accident didn't happen, it's possible he could have still committed suicide, so it's not really a mental disability per se, in my opinion, it's more like, it was all these circumstances that caused him to do this.
Okay. So because it was circumstantial, I kind of put you on the
Yeah.
Okay. So what concerns me is kind of like what you said in the beginning, the suicidality, right? That comment at the end of like, you would like to end it all. It's been a year. Now, again, what is a normal reaction, right? If you lost your legs, right? I mean, that your entire life has changed, right? And so to struggle with that and to have a hard time coping with that, even after a year, I would say is normal, right? Like I wouldn't think it was abnormal to wonder about ending your life, or if you could live your life the same way. Like all of those things are pretty common, I would think. But the suicidality piece is a concern, right? Not that suicidality indicates a disorder, but that does indicate severity, right? And so that's kind of like, I would lean toward maybe yes with him, but with all of these, except for maybe Andrew, right? We've agreed as a sociopath. Except for Andrew, right? The point with all of this is that it's very rarely black and white. It's very rarely like, yes, they have a disorder, or no, they don't. It's a spectrum, right? So people can have depression, but it's mild. You can have depression and have it be profound, but it can also be mild and harder to see. So you can hold on to this if you want to. I'm not collecting it, or you can recycle it back to me later. But thank you for all of the, and you can close the Kahoot, we're done with that. Thank you for all of the comments and the discussion. That's kind of the point with this thing here, right? Is I want you to know and kind of take away that it isn't usually obvious. Okay, and we're going to talk about the diagnostic criteria all semester. Every disorder has criteria that you have to meet in order to be diagnosed with it. And the APA and the DSM-5, we'll talk about more about the DSM later, but it's the book that tells us what each disorder criteria is. there's a statement in the DSM that kind of sums up how we know if it's a disorder or not. And even within that, there's so much subjectivity, right? So if we read this together, I'm gonna read it over here. A mental disorder is a syndrome characterized by clinically significant disturbance in an individual's cognition, emotion regulation, or behavior that reflects a dysfunction in the psychological, biological, or developmental processes underlying mental functioning. Mental disorders are usually associated with significant distress or disability in social, occupational, or other important activities. An expectable or culturally approved response to a common stressor or loss, such as the death of a loved one, is not a mental disorder. Socially deviant behavior, political, religious, or sexual, and conflicts that are primarily between the individual and society are not mental disorders unless the deviance or conflict results from a dysfunction in the individual as described above. Okay, so that's the APA's official statement on what's a disorder and what isn't. And again, all semester long, we'll talk about the criteria, but it isn't always so easy to see. Okay, so I know we spent a lot of time on that today, but it's important to keep in the back of your mind that there is such a spectrum when it comes to mental illness. And sometimes you know it right when you see it, and other times it's very, very subtle. Okay. So rather than continue on, we'll leave exorcisms and trepanations for Monday. Very exciting. Something to look forward to or dread. Watch a movie related to it over the weekend. I'll give you a minute. I'd like to go ahead and pack up. Then I'm going to take attendance, and we'll call it a day. Yeah. No, that was it.